If you told me 10 years ago that we would have a successful Venom trilogy that doesn't even include Spider Man before we even got a modern Batman or Superman trilogy, I most likely would have slapped you. Hey guys, Caleb here from CDBS Studios, and recently I finally got the chance to go to a movie theater and watch Venom: The Last Dance. So today I'm going to bring to you my spoiler review of the movie. Again, this is a spoiler review, so if you have not seen the movie yet and you do not want anything spoiled for you, then pause this video, go watch it, then come back. I will still be here. If you've already seen the movie yourself, go ahead and leave your thoughts on the movie down in the comment section down below, but without further ado, let's get started. So, quickly, before we start getting into the nitty gritty of this, I'm going to quickly break down the plot so that we all are on the same page. In Venom: The Last Dance, we follow Eddie Brock and Venom very shortly after they return from the MCU post Spider Man No Way Home. The two are currently on the run, as Eddie is currently a wanted man based on his crimes committed in Venom Let There Be Carnage. On the other side of things, we get introduced in this movie to Null, the symbiote god, the guy who created the symbiotes, but the symbiotes turned on him and locked him in a prison. The only way out is with a thing called a codex, something that Venom and Eddie formed when Venom brought Eddie back to life during their battle with Riot in the first Venom movie. So the two are on the run from Null's minions, and they eventually end up making it to Area 55, a secret base underneath Area 51 that has been researching symbiotes. And when Null's guys come to get them, all of the symbiotes team up to fight off Null's minions. But in a last-ditch effort to make sure that the Codex is destroyed forever, Venom sacrifices himself to destroy the Codex once and for all. The movie then ends with Eddie going to New York City to see Lady Liberty with a very beautiful song showcasing us Eddie and Venom's adventures over the course of the 3 movies they spent together. Of course, that is a very watered down version of the plot, but I want to keep this very brief and also give you a chance to. I also don't want to spoil everything, so in case you do still want to go see the movie after this review goes up, you still have a to go see it. So I'm going to go into some of my positives on the movie that I have here. So the first main positive that I can say is that this movie has a couple of jokes that really do land. I think that like all of the Venom movies, there at least is a part of it that I enjoyed. There are some really decent jokes here and there, and as far as it goes, the characters are generally pretty likable. Eddie and Venom are still a very likable duo. They're the reason that these movies are so successful, and the fact that Venom has a successful trilogy, even. Looking at some of the other side characters, there's this doctor who has this whole backstory where she got struck by lightning and her brother died due to that, and she's like the head researcher on the symbiote. I kind of like her. She kind of is cool. There's this other scientist that's kind of played for jokes, who has this Christmas brooch, even though it's the middle of July in the movie, which doesn't make a lot of sense, but she's not that bad of a character either. And on the flip side of it, I think there's also some good emotion in this movie, as this movie is the finale of the trilogy. They really go hard to make sure that this movie has really decent finality to it, as we have, Venom sacrificing himself in the end, like I mentioned in the plot summary, and there also are tons of references to the past 2 movies, and it really does feel like a finale for this franchise in a way that really kind of brings our story full circle, and it makes the film a very nice watch. But just like any movie, when there are positives, there are also negatives. And I unfortunately have to say, Venom: The Last Dance has a lot of negatives on my part. Coming from me, the first big negative that I really have with this movie is that for being a Venom movie, Venom isn't in it for a whole lot. And I get there's the whole story reason that if Venom is fully transformed, that the Null's minions can track him and the Codex. So there's a story reason why he's not in the movie, but it still just feels weird that we have a Venom movie where Venom is not really in it for most of the time. In fact, I think this is the least amount of Venom screen time across the entire trilogy is this movie. On the other side, that I do also think this movie struggles with pacing, as the first act of the movie goes pretty quickly and is really fun, and the third act has that big symbiote battle, which is really cool. The second act is really where the movie drags for me, as the second act is this whole story of Eddie trying to get to New York City, and because of not having Venom, he has to walk across the desert. He keeps losing his shoes for some reason, and then he runs into this family that is trying to go see Area 51 because it's being destroyed. So Eddie gets to hang out with this family, and I don't really like any of these characters. I just think they don't add much to the story, and they kind of are a little annoying. And the second act just drags for way too long until we finally get to the third act. I just think the middle of this movie is really where this film drags. Also, I will say that for Null being the main villain of this movie, Null's not even in this movie a lot. He's in the opening narration, the very end of the movie, and the post-credit scene. That's all Null gets. So, and it just sucks because Null is just a great character in the comics that it really just feels like they wasted Null. And I get they have the whole story reason that they want to use Null for multiple movies. So it just feels like they just didn't want to use Null in this movie, see if fans liked him, and then when they make some other movie, they can use him. So that just rubs me the wrong way. And the other notes I have is that we have the general character in this movie, who is the man who is trying to hunt down Eddie and Venom. He just is really annoying. I do not like this character. He just has this whole arc where he just doesn't believe anything anyone says. And even though he knows the symbiotes exist, he's like, nah, the symbiotes are not our friends, even though they've been told by like 5 different people at this point that they are. And the only time he comes around is the final battle, and the only reason he does is because he finally sees the symbiotes fighting Null's minions, and even then, he doesn't really have any kind of redemption. He just basically doesn't participate in the battle until Venom forces to because he needs it to activate the acid that he needs to kill himself. So I just really do not like that character, and it just makes the experience so annoying every time he shows up on screen because I just do not care for that character. Another big negative that I guess I will say is that I don't know if it's just a fact of they just took forever to make this movie, but for some reason, Eddie specifically seems really old in this movie. Like, this movie is meant to take place directly after Spider-Man No Way Home. And even then, Spider-Man No Way Home is not supposed to be that far after Let There Be Carnage. But for some reason in this movie, Eddie looks like so much older. And I know that's a part of like Tom Hardy just aging naturally. It just feels so off in the movie, especially when they bring up that one line that apparently Venom and Eddie have only been together for a year, and it just makes so many weird points. Like, you're telling me that like the Eddie we see in Let There Be Carnage is not 1 year older than the one we see in Venom. Like, I hate to break it to you, Sony. Now going into some of my overall points, I think this is a enjoyable finale to a mediocre trilogy. I think, and I thought this back when the trilogy when the first Venom movie got announced, and I still think it now. Doing a Venom movie without Spider-Man is the dumbest idea ever decided in cinema. Like, I get that they found a way to do a Venom story without Spider-Man. And I even am notorious for actually liking the first Venom movie, but it just leads to this problem, I think, with the overall trilogy is that Venom doesn't really have enough to carry his own movies, as especially in terms of villains, because there are just not that many villains that Venom has that are strictly his. It's usually a Spider-Man villain that Venom teams up with Spider-Man to fight. So all of the villains in this trilogy are symbiotes because that's all they can think to use. And even then, there are so many weird plot points in these movies that just make them so notorious. And I just think that this trilogy is stupid. On the other hand, I really enjoy these movies. I think that once you remove them from the context of their Venom stories without Spider-Man and just look at them as fun little Venom, like horror kind of spin off superhero stories, they're actually okay. They're definitely not my favorite superhero movies of all time, but considering just how the superhero genre is in 2024, Venom the Last Dance is not the worst we've seen, even this year, let alone Madam Web. So, to bring it lightly, this movie is very enjoyable. If I was to rank it amongst the Venom trilogy, I would put Let There Be Carnage in last place at third, Venom the Last Dance at second, and the first Venom at number one. But even then, almost the entire trilogy, I would give like a 5 out of 10 or like a 3 out of 5 stars. I mean, it's an enjoyable trilogy, but it's not like top tier superhero cinema. But yeah, so there you guys have it. That is my review of Venom the Last Dance. I would totally recommend seeing the film if you have not already. And if you have already seen the film, join me in a discussion down in the comment section below. Let me know what you guys thought of the film and we can get a conversation going. And if you guys like these kind of videos on the channel, make sure to like and subscribe so that you don't miss the next one when it comes out. But without further ado, thank you guys all very much for watching and I hope to see you guys all in the next one. Bye!